I had been through so many pieces of the program that I thought that I was pretty far along. I thought, oh, I'll be one of Brian's advanced students or something. But having it all together into a condensed, extended period, especially the on-site, sessions, those were absolutely fantastic. And not just the content, but the lunches and the sidebar conversations and people just letting their guard down and being themselves. It was amazing. So I think that extended, engagement with the entire program was really the transformational factor. It wasn't an HR workshop taught by HR people who aren't in leadership positions saying, hey, if you're talking to an employee who's a millennial, consider these things. Because that's like an idea. It's not really a behavior. You're not practicing building in that behavior. And again, that extended time of all of that together built in this kind of metacognitive thing where I'm now thinking, even when I'm speaking in meetings or we're having a leadership moment, I'm thinking about the lessons. I'm thinking about, okay, what would this person from my cohort advise me to do? Or, what would a CIO do in this particular case? Or what is the right answer to this? Not just the easy answer or the quick answer. Like, what is the right thing to do in this case? So the extended period of engagement really enabled that behavior to sink in and become that new neural pathway. That was one of the takeaway lessons of videos about learning how to ride a bike differently and unlearning what what got you here won't get you there. All of those things kind of tied together, and you can't just do that in disconnected one-off workshops. You really have to engage in the behavior and the discussion and the activities. So anyway, just the length and the intensity of the program, I think, was great. And then again, this is part of the science of learning is the repeated interaction. So it's not just the sessions and then you go away and do nothing and then another session. There was the coaching meetings, the accountability, the reflections, as much as I had time to do those.
I would call my experience a game changer. I think that, and I think that was below transformational, if I remember correctly. I think the gap there was really kind of had to do with the amount that I put into it. I think the tools were there and available, but that's still a huge thing for me and a great leap forward. And it couldn't have been more timely for me in my leadership journey. I think the tools that it put in my hands and the practices, whether it's leading, managing, doing, the strategic planning approach and the template that we have been using, thinking about intentionality on presence, leadership as a stage and the roles, all those different things. So it put all those things in my hands. And then I think a key to it, the most important part of the program for me, it reinforced them through a structure that clearly incorporated facts about our human psychology and knowledge about how leaders and their busy lives work to the point it structured in that way to the point where I have developed new habits and I have the ability to kind of reinforce those and grow them. It also gave me the space and the context to really effectively reflect the times coming together, for three days away, and the structured practices of reflection, so that I could really get more value out of the experiences I'm having. Right? I mean, we're often caught up in the whirlwind, and so just coming apart for that time was tremendously valuable.
And the terminology you've used to describe some of it is game changing. When I look at my own individual growth, I see the impacts of that program day to day and how I approach my work, how I think about my work, how I think about how I invest in my team. And I see the change in them because I'm investing in them differently as well. But in seeing my direct reports as a team of leaders and thinking about them as leaders in the organization and being able to step back and give them more space to take that leadership role was a big change this year. And that was part of what I've spent quite a bit of time with Laura on in our coaching, and thinking about how I delegate differently, not to just get tasks done, but also some of those leadership activities. And letting them step into their leadership space in the organization, which then has given me the ability to operate at a different leadership level as I think about strategically where we need to go over the next 5 to 10 years. people commented, in my organization at how different I was coming out of that program and at that time. And
Right.
so that really was, even though it was a different experience than the Advanced Leaders Program, it was a very powerful experience for me.
If there were 2 or 3 things that really had an impact for you back then, earlier on, what would you point to as what people might have seen changed in you when you came back from the MOR Ivy program?
The concept of leading, managing, and doing
Mhm.
is a really powerful concept. And even though I had been working in a leadership role for at least 10 years at that point, I considered myself a manager.
Mm.
And a lot of the frame of how I approached my work, how I approached collaboration across the organization was as a manager, not as a leader. And a big component of that program was I redefined myself and my role in the organization and recognized what I should be doing rather than what I had been doing. Practical components of the program that helped me were things like the 4 I's, things that I struggled with and had gotten feedback on in performance reviews, other 360s, that I understood people wanted me to do something differently in terms of how I built relationships or how I collaborated with people, but I didn't know practically how to change it. And so having those tools and having a way to apply them, and then you give a really great space, and it's one of the notes I made for the Advanced Leaders Program as well, you give a really great space for experimenting with those things before I have to try them out in real time.
Yeah.
And have the perception of the organization, the perception of the person I'm engaging with at my organization influence how we work together going forward.
Right.
So those were 2 really, really big components for me coming out of the first cohort.
Again, I just want to give kudos for the thoughtfulness of the design as a whole, even kind of teasing it out in those ways, and then for being intentional about both of those pieces. I would say, or all of those pieces, not both of those pieces. I would say for me that the 2 elements, components of it, or tracks, I think on the individual development track, the coaching was just tremendously valuable for me. Working with you, Brian, and being able to have the coach's insights. The ability to be a sounding board around a variety of concerns, especially kind of in my role as a newer CIO in a new position. It was just enormously valuable. The cadence of that engagement served as a reinforcement mechanism for all the things that were going on. It helped me to personalize the application of the materials and the practices. I was able to have an external experienced, eye to help kind of evaluate and give me feedback on things that are going on in my world and challenges I was dealing with. And yeah, like I think I already said, it was one of the key things that helped hold me accountable for engaging with the materials and the practices.